And thank you, Peter, for inviting me back for Diabetes Awareness Month. Really excited. I think this is either maybe my fourth or fifth time with the sangha. So really happy to be here. And so today I'm going to be giving a little workshop on breathing for stress relief and resilience. And I put a mini breath retreat into Calm because it's kind of structured like you might see a talk at a retreat. We're going to chat a little bit about some of the why, like why are we doing this? Do a practice, talk a little bit more, do a practice, and maybe 3 or 4 practices depending on how much time we have. And please feel free to interrupt with questions anytime. I want everything to be clear. So yeah, feel free to interrupt and ask anything as we go through. So yes, my name is Nick Heath. I figure since I haven't been here in a while, I would introduce myself and a little bit of my background with diabetes, my origin story. So this is me at age 11 when I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. I got it on December 19th, 1998. So I'm coming up on 27 years with type 1. And yeah, it was winter break. Kind of a funny story about this picture is that they sent around Santa Claus, and they brought a news crew, of course, to get credit that they sent around Santa Claus. And so I ended up on the news. And since a lot of my friends were out of school, uh, some of my friends saw it and thought maybe I was dying. And so I got a lot of presents, needless to say. So my type 1 diagnosis was actually kind of joyful because I ended up getting tons of video games, which I was super excited about. But so that's how actually I got diabetes. But my interest in breathing came later in life when I was about 30 because my sister passed away. She had breast cancer, and this is her with her son Logan. And I guess I was 28 at the time. And so when your sibling passes, your older sister passes away with a child, and you're just trying to figure out what's the point of life? Like, why, how did this happen? This isn't fair. All the things anyone goes through with all of us have lost someone we love and know that process. And so one thing I discovered through my inquiries into philosophy, I mean, I was like one of those weird, I'd be sitting there drinking red wine, reading philosophy. I got really into like, what's the point of life? And one thing I discovered was breath work through Wim Hof. And so I started breathing as a way to escape real life, as a spiritual practice, as like I would, I'm a scientist by training. I would do all that during the day, and then I would go do my breathing when no one was around as a way to escape life and try to connect with a higher power. And so I was doing that pretty consistently. So I was open to this idea that breathing has an influence on our bodies and our minds. But it wasn't until I discovered a guy named Patrick McEwen, where I started to learn about the science of breathing. So I heard him on a podcast, and he was talking about like, oh, breathe through your nose and nasal nitric oxide and carbon dioxide and how it interacts with your nervous system, and breathe slower, and all of these things I had never heard of before because I was so focused on the spiritual side of it. And so I just started practicing what he advertised. I took it wholeheartedly, started doing everything he suggested. And lo and behold, it was probably 2 or 3 months later, I was like, my blood sugars have been the best I've ever seen. And as someone with type 1, right, we know those things are really obvious when something has a dramatic impact on us. It's hard to know why things go wrong, but it's usually pretty obvious when things go right. And so I was really fascinated by what could be happening. And so I started reading papers and just became obsessed with it. And I found a mountain of scientific research showing that breathing helps with mainly stress reduction, right? And then that translates into benefits for people like us living with diabetes. But there was just a ton of research on diabetes specifically and on all sorts of different health populations. And so I felt it was my obligation at that point to go learn more. So I went and got certified for what it's worth. But really what I am is just a nerd. I'm just a breathing nerd. I love to read about it and practice it and talk about it a lot. And so I'm hoping that this will help you understand some of the power of the breath and why I became so obsessed with it. So why would we care about breathing? Why did I become so excited about it? So we breathe a lot. We take about 20 to 25,000 breaths per day. And over an average year and lifetime, this is about some of the numbers you see, 7.5 million per year and hundreds of millions in our lifetime. And it turns out that each breath we take influences every aspect of our health, whether it's our heart, our autonomic nervous system, our sleep, our focus, our basically any aspect of your body is influenced by your breath. And sometimes I feel like like a late night infomercial because, as Peter will attest, I get up here and talk about breathing in every different angle, right? There's so many different ways to look at it. And it really comes down to oxygen, right? Oxygen is our body's most important energy source. And so every single organ in our body, every cell in our body is reliant on oxygen. And so it kind of just makes common sense that the process that brings that in, breathing, would have a priority in our brain, in our heart, and everywhere basically throughout our body. It turns out that the breath has intricate ties. And why that's important is because we take so many breaths, right? This 20 to 25,000 per day. Even little changes we make in our breathing will be propagated and compounded over those thousands and thousands we take each day, giving us like basically a nonstop micro chance to positively influence our mental health and our physical health. And so it's a really powerful tool because of how much we actually breathe. So yeah, I kind of said that, but what I want you to take away from this as we go through it is that controlled breathing is one of the most accessible ways to reduce stress and build resilience. And we're gonna talk about why. So to understand that, I want to begin at the top of when we bring breath into our body, what can we do to optimize it? And the simplest thing is just choosing to breathe through your nose versus your mouth. So it turns out this little graphic I have, let me move the participants so I can see better. There we go. This shows a few of the things that nasal breathing can do for us: warming and humidifying the incoming air, slowing our breathing rate, reducing the volume of air coming in and out of our lungs, things like oxygenation, filtering, nitric oxide, all of these really neat things that just something as simple as breathing through our nose can do. So to show you one example, this was a study back in 1996, I believe. It's a really small study, but what they did is they had people either breathe through their nose and out through their mouth, or in through their mouth and out through their nose. And they had them do this for 5 minutes. And so what you see in this graph is their oxygenation going up during the nasal breathing period, and then going back down for the 5 minutes of oral breathing, back up during the 5 minutes of nasal breathing, and back down. And this was measuring oxygen that was actually getting to the tissue. So not just getting into the lungs, right? Not just actually getting circulated and delivered where it's needed. And so as a person with diabetes, I was really interested in this because there are a group of researchers out there who think that lack of oxygen at the cellular level, or tissue hypoxia, is one of the primary mechanisms of some of our complications. Now, does this mean that nasal breathing will cure us of this? Of course not, right? But if it even gives us a little boost, right, a little extra oxygen with each of those 20,000 breaths, it seems like a positive way to help offset this, even if it's just slightly. And so that's why I was like, oh, this seems really important to be breathing through my nose as much as possible. And that's been one of the most positive effects. Just to give you one more example of the power of the nose, and since all of us here are meditators, I think this is especially important. So they took a group of people and they had them basically lie down, and they put cannulas up their nose, and they puffed air into their nose at a very slow rate to mimic what people get into in Zen meditation. So when they really slow down their breath to maybe like around 3 breaths per minute, because they're just so relaxed. And instead of actually having them do the breathing, though, they had it mechanically forced so that it was just airflow going through their nose. And then they had a sham where they just put the tubes in and no air went through. And so you can just see their brain light up from the nasal stimulation. These, from sham to nasal, and then this is showing the difference. And these little dots are all the electrodes where they're measuring the electrical activity where it was statistically significant. And so basically why this, I don't know if I didn't put it in here, but the the ranges here, I think it's the delta and the theta. Yep. These increasing power at these frequencies is the same thing that happens during either relaxation or meditative states. And so what they showed is that the people actually felt calmer and more relaxed just from the simple act of getting the air through their nose. And so basically what it tells us is if we breathe through our nose while we meditate, which most of us do, it's going to enhance some of that relaxation and some of the brainwave changes that we're after, that promote focus, and that, well, I guess you should say that relaxed focus that we're all after, where we're concentrated, but it feels effortless and easy. So the take home message here for this part, there's no practice, unfortunately. It's mainly just try to breathe through your nose as much as possible. things get different with exercise. So, you know, we can talk, you can ask questions or afterward if you're interested in any specific scenario with nasal breathing. But for the most part, when we're all at rest, we can be breathing through our nose as much as possible to get a lot of the benefits. So that's the first part. It comes in through our nose. So now let's talk about where we bring the air with each breath we take. And I'm going to show this kind of silly diagram, but I read it in a book and it's kind of illustrative if you think of this as your chest cavity. So from about your diaphragm up to the top of your shoulders, your collarbones. And what it's going to show you is that there's kind of three primary ways we can breathe with each breath we take. We can either kind of do this shoulder breathing where we're take this big breath through our shoulders, which a lot of people naturally do. If you ask them to take a big breath, they lift up their shoulders. We can also breathe in our chest. So we kind of more focus on the chest wall with these big breaths. Or the one probably you know that's most relaxing is you can breathe with your diaphragm. So you can actually push down and that will bring air in. I'll quickly mention for those of you who are interested that breath is the way the breath actually gets into your body is really fascinating because we have this chest cavity and all we do is we expand it, right? We either push our diaphragm down, our ribs out, or our shoulders up, and that increases the volume. And that actually causes a pressure gradient where the air gets pushed into your lungs. So it's almost like the earth is breathing us or the atmosphere is breathing us in a way. And so it's kind of a unique perspective that we physically change the pressure, but it almost is like the atmosphere goes into us and breathes us, which is something you can definitely meditate on if you're sitting there thinking I'm being breathed by the atmosphere. It's a pretty fascinating and interesting thing to think about. In any case, which one of these is most efficient? Well, it's that bottom one when we breathe with our diaphragm. Turns out when we breathe in through our abdomen and we push our diaphragm down, this triggers the relaxation response. It basically tells your body, hey, I'm safe. This is how I would be breathing when I'm safe. And it's this bottom up approach. So it's basically tricking your body into thinking it's relaxed. You send these signals through our primary nervous system, our vagus nerve, which is the primary nerve of the parasympathetic nervous system. But in any case, it just sends these signals to our brain that tell it, hey, you're safe. And then the brain sends signals back down that says it's okay. So it's kind of like inverse meditation, where instead of using our mind to calm us down, we use our diaphragm to tell our mind to calm down. And so it's a bottom up approach. Mechanically, it is, well, let me just go ahead and put them all. Yeah, I'll just, okay. Mechanically, it brings the air down into the bottom of your lungs. So most of us are sitting upright, and because of gravity, a lot of the blood flow will be near the base of our lungs. And so to get the most exchange of gas and blood, if you bring air deeply into it, you're going to get a better, more surface area to work with. And that's going to make each breath require less energy because we're getting more oxygen for less effort. And so what that does is it makes things more efficient, and then it makes it easier to calm down because your breathing is more efficient. And finally, this is my favorite. This is from Jon Kabat-Zinn. He talks about basically shifting the attention. It's not even worrying about any of this physiology stuff, just taking your mind and giving it a place to think like, oh, let me focus on my abdomen moving. It takes it out of the turmoil of our minds, right? Where all that hecticness is that we're all trying to figure out how to tame or to just ride that wave with it, and brings it down into the center of your body, the actual center of gravity, your core, and that can really be grounding and help you relax naturally. Again, I like to show data. Don't take my word for it. So this is a study, I believe this was 2017 in Frontiers in Psychology, and they had people just do belly breathing. Breathe into your abdomen as slowly as you can, and then breathe out a little bit longer. No pacer, no nothing. Just sit there and do that for 15 minutes, 3 times a week. And they saw significant reductions in cortisol, which is the body's primary stress hormone. And then they also saw improvements in attention and other things. But this is really showing that physiological marker, reducing stress, reducing cortisol from something as simple as belly breathing. So we are going to try that now. This is going to be our first practice. These are the instructions. I'll talk you through them once, and then you can practice. But essentially, like with anything, we'll start by relaxing our shoulders. And then you can place one hand on your on your chest, and then one either right on your belly button or just above it, on your stomach. And then, of course, you can close your eyes. And then what we're going to do is try to breathe in so that the hand on our chest moves very little, if maybe not at all. And the hand on your abdomen pushes out as you inhale and then goes back in as you exhale. There's no rules except for to breathe through your nose and breathe as slowly as you can, and try to exhale maybe slightly longer than your inhale if it feels comfortable. So let's go ahead and try that. So if everyone could sit up straight, relax your shoulders, one hand on the chest, one hand on your abdomen, and then just begin breathing in and out through your nose, slowly and smoothly. Don't cause yourself any stress or air hunger, just whatever's comfortable with your body right now. Allowing the breath to fill up your abdomen on the inhale, and then relax back on the exhale. And just do this at whatever pace is comfortable for you for a few minutes. Now, keeping your eyes closed, I want you to try to just put your hands comfortably in your lap, but continue to breathe in that same manner, focusing on your abdomen rising with the inhale and then falling with the exhale. This is more representative of what you could do in any stressful situation, with no one ever needing to know. And now you can let go of the breath. Just take a moment to notice how you feel. If you actually feel calmer and more relaxed. Maybe if that was your first time, you might even feel a little tension, and that's normal too. Just notice how you feel after that practice. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back to the Zoom. So that is one of the most basic and most powerful practices you can do. If it felt uncomfortable at all, one really nice tip is you can lay down on your back and bend your knees, and you can do the exact same thing with your hands, or you can even place a small book on your stomach, anything to kind of accentuate the movement of your abdomen. And like I said, we basically did exactly what they did in this study here, but just a little bit shorter. We only did about 2 minutes for those of you who are interested in knowing. Okay, so that is abdominal breathing. Any questions or any thoughts at this point? Anyone have anything? Anything in the chat? No, maybe. Let's see. Oh no. Okay, awesome. Well, then I will keep moving.
Actually, I'm sorry, I do. I keep having problems with my auto trying to get off mute, but so This practice, do you do this on a regular basis daily, or do you just use it when you're feeling the need to do it, or how do you use
So either one. So when I used to do this a lot, I would do it every morning.
it?
And that was a way to, and actually we can kind of mention that with all the breath practices, most of them are best done when you're not stressed at first, so you can learn how to do it. Because if you try to take control of your breath, if you've never practiced and you're in a really stressful situation, it can be really challenging, and it can
Mhm.
cause you more anxiety and more stress. And so I always recommend doing this in a really calm part of your day to train your body, sort of like a basketball player shoots at practice, so that when they're in the game, they know how to make the shot. So that when then you are stressed, you can come back to this. For example, before a presentation or before maybe a stressful conversation, you're going to have with someone, a family member or something like that. But learning it and practicing it mostly in a controlled environment is a little like the minimum effective dose to get really lasting benefits is about 5 minutes. So that would be what I would recommend.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And again, feel free to interrupt at any moment with questions. So started at the nose, talked about bringing the breath down into the abdomen. And so now I want to talk about the rate of breathing. So the actual pace we choose when we breathe. And this is my favorite topic of all, which is slow breathing. I put here just the easiest way to calm your nervous system, because it really is one of the fastest ways to relax your body. Um, so slow breathing, if you see it, you might hear the word resonance breathing or coherent breathing. You hear a lot of different terms on the internet and in different places, and it's really breathing at a rate less than 10 breaths per minute, but it typically refers to somewhere between about 4 and 7 breaths per minute. Just as a reference, most of us breathe between about 12 and 18 breaths per minute. So we're talking about cutting it in half or even a third of our resting breathing rate when we breathe slowly. Why it's important is that most of the time, this is how we're all kind of wired, right? Our stress response, the fight or flight, which increases heart rate, uh, gets us ready to run, to prepare for action, is outweighing the rest and digest. These should be in balance usually. Um, but we have emails, like Peter and I were talking at the beginning. We're looking at screens all day. This causes just this natural higher tendency of stress. Um, I do it, right? I look at a computer all day long for work. I check my phone all the time. And so what slow breathing gives us is a tool to kind of tilt it the other way. Now, it might not actually ever flow it this way, but even if it brings it back a little bit to kind of offset some of that damage basically to our nervous system from the chronic stress we're under, whether it's from, yeah, again, watching the news or going outside and, heat, cold, anything that can be happening. This gives us a tool that can help balance that out a little bit more and bring us back into a calmer state. Just to give you an idea of how powerful this can be, there have been now 2 independent studies that have looked at over 50 different individual research papers showing that these simple slow breathing techniques reduce stress and anxiety, like things like meditation, mindfulness, and cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's essentially just another tool in your toolkit. When you want to maybe do it before meditation or after meditation or in the moment, there's just a lot of research now showing that it can be really powerful for reducing stress. And so I always like to show this because it's pretty fascinating. But why it works is because when we do these slow breathing techniques, it aligns messages from our heart, our lungs, and our nervous system. So normally our body, I think I have a couple images to show this, is sending signals from all these different organs to our brain. Our heart's sending signals. We have these little receptors that are monitoring blood pressure. They're sending signals to our brain. And it kind of looks like this image on the left where things are just choppy. We're getting all these mixed up signals. And when we breathe slowly, it unifies all of those signals. I mentioned I'm a surfer, by the way, so this is why I always come to the ocean if I can. And it starts to make these really nice curves in all of our functions. When you look at our heart rate, when you look at our blood pressure, you start to see these nice sinusoidal curves because everything is coming into harmony when you breathe slowly. And the way we measure that is through heart rate variability. some of us might have some of these monitors, or you might sleep with an Aura ring or whatever, if you're into that side of the things. I don't monitor mine, but I have in the past. And basically, heart rate variability is one of these general markers of overall better health. The more heart rate variability you have, generally it means you're more resilient to stress. And so what we find is that when you breathe slowly during the time you're doing it, right after, and then long-term benefits happen where we see baseline improvements in our heart rate variability from these simple slow breathing practices, because of what I just said of bringing everything into unison and making things work more efficient. I won't. Yeah, I mentioned, because I mentioned resilience in the topic, and really resilience is I mean, the best training for resilience is having diabetes. There's no better practice for learning how to bounce back after highs and lows, and never understanding why sometimes you go high or sometimes you go low. And so it turns out that heart rate variability is one of these measures that is kind of an index of resilience. People with higher heart rate variability tend to bounce back quicker from stressors. It doesn't mean we don't ever get stressed. It just means that when we do, we're able to get back quicker. And so when we do these slow breathing practices, you can think of it as resilience training for life and for diabetes in particular. And I think, yeah, I grabbed a quote because I believe Evan's been in the Sangha before, right, Peter? Yeah. And she has an excellent quote here by modulating the stress response via conscious breathing exercises, people can bolster their resilience in all forms of negative stressors. Diabetes is no exception. So she wrote the book Yoga Therapy for Diabetes, by the way, if y'all weren't here for her talk. But it really just highlights that when you do these breathing exercises, you're increasing resilience, and it'll help with diabetes. It'll help with life in general. So we're going to do 2 slow breathing practices now. We're going to be slightly different. The first one, we're going to do an equal inhale and an equal exhale. The instructions are going to be very similar, but we're going to switch it just slightly from what we did earlier. So what I want everyone to do during this session is when you're going to breathe in through your nose, and then when you exhale, you're going to exhale through pursed lips, like you're blowing on hot soup or on hot coffee. It doesn't have to be loud. It can be very gentle. And that'll help with the relaxation, and it'll help control the out breath, since this may be slower than most of you are used to. So the same instructions otherwise. So everyone, if you could go ahead and sit up straight, relax your shoulders, close your eyes, and just start to begin slowly at your own pace, just easy in and out, just to kind of relax your mind. Now I want everyone to take an inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. In and out through pursed lips. In and out. now just let go of control of your breathing and just take another moment to notice how you feel. You might notice a little more saliva in your mouth. Your hands may be a little tingly. Your mind may be calmer. When you're ready, you can open your eyes. Does everyone feel calmer? More stressed? Yeah, I see Peter nodding. I can't see everyone's face, unfortunately. Okay, good. Any questions? Any thoughts after that short practice? That was 2 minutes, by the way.
There just maybe a question about breathing out through the pursed lips versus breathing out through the nose. I may have missed it if you mentioned it.
The reasoning?
Yeah,
Right.
and maybe the difference.
Okay, yeah. It's a great question. And there's okay, so for the reasoning behind it is that it makes it a little easier to exhale longer for most people when you're learning. So there's a tendency at the right when you start the exhale that when you breathe out through your nose, you kind of dump the air quickly and then you're forcing it near the end and it becomes kind of stressful. And it turns out when you exhale through the pursed lips, it gives you a little bit more control right at the beginning of the exhale, which makes it easier to extend it if you're new to the practice. Um, like when I first began, I was doing a lot through the mouth, but then once I got really comfortable, I liked in and out through the nose because it was just way calmer for me. I didn't have to think, right? I could just get into that zone. But for learning, the mouth is a little bit easier. As far as like, is there differences in benefits? Um, it's there's no like I can't give you a for sure difference, but the things I found is that most people find it a little bit more relaxing when they breathe out through their mouth, probably for that same reason that it's just simpler. And then there is one benefit of improved nitric oxide delivery to your lungs when you breathe out through the mouth. It gets a little I guess technical, but our paranasal sinuses is creating this gas called nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator. So when you bring it in your lungs, it loosens up the blood vessels and blood flow is improved in your lungs. And this is well documented and it's one of the best parts about nasal breathing. But because it's always being produced in your nasal cavity, when you exhale, you actually exhale some of it. So it actually goes out and then so you wash it out, so to speak. So when you exhale through your mouth, that nasal nitric oxide just sits there and it pulls up and it pulls up so that the next in breath you bring even more down into your lungs and that can open up the lungs even more. The actual amount more, I don't think there's any research behind that, but it's definitely been shown that it helps to improve lung blood flow when you breathe in that way. And I think a chat. Is that a question? Oh yes. That's a great question from Ellen. Yes, I've found that for any asthma and COPD papers I come across, they always seem to use pursed lips breathing. I My interpretation of it was that just because when you have difficulties with your lungs, exhaling longer is harder, and so giving that extra, kind of tool of using the mouth makes it simpler to breathe slower. But there's definitely a great possibility that I don't know the research behind. Maybe there's more to it than that, but I definitely see that with any type of lung dysfunction almost exclusively they use pursed lips breathing and find improvements in a lot of like different respiratory functions. Great point, Ellen. Okay. Susan?
Yes, there was one breathing technique I learned as part of my becoming a Qigong instructor. So the instruction is hand on belly and on chest. And when you breathe in, expanding the belly and then moving it to the chest so that you get this full body breath. And on the out breath, relaxing from the chest and then into the diaphragm. That was hard to do, but I'm wondering whether there is more oxygen intake when you do that, or I really didn't get to the science behind why that was the case in Qigong.
Right. That's a great, yeah, awesome question. So yes, so I've only read that technique as it was called yogic total breathing, is where I've heard of it. Yeah, it's where you start with the belly, then the ribs, and then the chest. And yes, it's supposed to basically maximize all of the surface area of the lungs and really give you a full, complete breath, more oxygenation, and naturally slow down your breathing because you're taking the time. It's mindfulness, right? You're focusing on each component of the breath. Eventually you want it to be natural, but that is a staple technique in yoga. It's a little more complex, as you mentioned. It's kind of like hard to teach. So even when I do it, I feel like maybe I'm not doing it right sometimes. So I don't ever teach it, but it's definitely a powerful technique.
Thank you.
Okay. So, yep. Okay, we're gonna do one more. Let's see what time is it. Okay, yeah, we're doing okay. We're gonna do one more slow breathing practice. So it's gonna be just like the last one. If you feel more comfortable breathing out through your nose, please feel free to. But if you liked the pursed lips breathing, stick with that. The only difference with this one, it's very subtle, but the exhalation is going to be longer than the inhalation, just slightly. So the first one, they were equal, and this one's going to be a slightly longer exhalation, which generally promotes more relaxation. But I don't want to influence you. I want you to use mindfulness to see how you feel at the end, if you enjoy this one better or not. So same instructions. If you could sit up straight, relax your shoulders, and close your eyes. And again, just take 1 or 2 clearing breaths, breathing in and breathing out. Do one more. Breathe in and breathe out. And again, we'll follow the tones, breathing in and out. Inhale and exhale. Continue to follow them the best you can. And again, take a moment to let go of your breath and just notice how you feel. Any changes in your mind or again in your body with the tingling of the hands or feet, maybe some warmth anywhere. And then you can open your eyes and come back to the Zoom. Some people actually find that it feels too fast like that. Did anyone have that experience where they felt like they were breathing too fast by chance? No? Okay, that's good. And the breathing rates, so I chose about 5.5 breaths per minute for both of those, which is kind of like a center point, but it's highly personal. So, you can get apps. There's all sorts of tools out there to take this and make it your own and find a pace that's most comfortable for you. Did anyone like the longer exhale better, or the equal breathing better?
I actually prefer the longer exhale better for me.
Okay. Okay.
I
Awesome.
think it's also what I'm used to doing.
Okay. Awesome.
I liked it better too, although it made me really sleepy.
Oh, mission accomplished. Yeah.
I also wonder about that pause at the top of the inhale and at the exhale. I think I'm more aware of that pause rather than just going in from focusing on the inhale and then the exhale.
Right.
I'm interested in with how important is that pause?
Okay, that's a great question. When you self-pace your, like, if like the first practice we had, right, you will naturally pause, and it will come at a, it will be sort of based on your nervous system. When you're really calm, it'll be really easily to pause at the top for a moment and then pause at the bottom for a moment or two, and it'll feel natural without stress. The slow breathing, it turns out, like, most of the research is without the pause. The continuous in and out seems to have this benefit for the heart rate variability and that kind of synchronization I talked about. But there is definitely a place for pauses once you're comfortable. So if you feel comfortable, there's a lot of breath techniques that bring them in. There's the 4-4-6-2, there's the 4-7-8, almost infinite number 5-2-7, I think, is a new one that's been popularized. So it's really, again, each person's nervous system is individual, so you can find, the pause that works for you. As far as like physiologically what's going on, most people find the inhale pause to be slightly more relaxing, which is why you see like the 4-7-8 breath has a long pause after the inhale and then no pause after the exhale. Same with like the 4-4-6-2. It's, pause after the inhale and then a slight pause after the exhale. Oh, and for those of you, the numbers I'm saying, 4-7-8 would be a 4-second inhale, a 7-second hold, and then an 8-second exhale. And that one's really been popularized by Dr. Andrew Weil, and it's one of these that you see in almost any meditation app or breathing app. But in any case, they each have a slight. So most people find the exhale pause slightly stressful because you just emptied your lungs and your body saying, "Hey, I need more air." But everyone's individual, and so it'll turn out that many people find the exhale pause to be slightly more relaxing, and then many people find the inhale pause. I could go on at the end, if we have time, I can go even more into the physiology of the inhale hold. It's pretty fascinating, but I'll stop here so we can do the last practice too, if that's okay. Yeah.
Thanks, Nick.
Yep. Okay. Oh yeah, it's almost. Let's do one more. Okay, so this is the last practice I wanted to teach you all, which is humming bee breath. This is one of my favorites. It's way more fun if we were all in person, because then we could all hum in unison and laugh at each other. But in this case, we're going to do it virtually. We won't be able to hear each other, but the idea is you just breathe in normally, a nice full breath, and then on the exhale, you hum, sort of like you're saying, sing the ing. Zoom will probably mute it, but you want a really high pitched ng sound that you're trying to make, and it'll vibrate up through your head, and it's really relaxing. It does not have to be loud. You don't have to exaggerate it, it can be very gentle just where you hear it. But that's the entire practice. And what we're going to do, yes, we're going to just do this once. So I want you to take your thumbs, and you can just gently close off either the flap of your ear, or you can actually plug them if you feel so inspired. It's just gentle though. You don't need to make it too intense. Hopefully you can still sort of hear me. And that will amplify this resonance effects. So now let's all plug our ears. Take a nice deep breath in and hum, exhaling. Again, breathe in and hum, exhaling. One more, breathe in fully and hum on the exhale as long as you can this time comfortably. And then when you're done, you can just let go of your ears. That's only 3 breaths, but that's a really, really powerful one to end like a meditation session. It's sort of like saying Om, but the deliberate extension of the breath and the closing of the ears can really magnify that resonance. I put a little research here. There's lots of studies on this one. It's a really well studied breath technique for relaxation and stress and anxiety. So I recommend this one before bed. If you have a partner, it's even funnier. So you can take advantage of that, humming while you're got your head on the pillow or something. But I find it a very relaxing way to end the day or end a meditation session. With that, let's see, we still have a few minutes for questions. I wanted to just show you this. If you want to create your own practice, I mentioned this earlier about the question of what time of day and how long. This is basically the best science available says you need about 5 minutes a day, any slow breathing technique you want, whether it's the 4-6, the 5-5 we did, humming bee breath. There's all sorts of different techniques, and do it for, basically once a day for 5 minutes, and you'll see really good improvements by as much as a little as a week in your stress levels. And then within a month, usually you start to see the more physiological changes like increased heart rate variability at rest and lower blood pressure and all the other fascinating benefits of slow breathing techniques. Okay, so with that summary, yeah, that's what you need to know. Breathe mostly through your nose, breathe deeply into your belly, exhale slowly and fully, and practice for at least 5 minutes a day. And you will see, hopefully, really powerful improvements. So with that, I will stop now so we have plenty of time for questions. And thank you all for your time and your breath. No more questions?
And Nick, I have a question.
Okay.
Of course, a comment is, so thank you so much for the presentation. It's amazing. It's amazing information and very easy to understand. 2 questions. So the first one is incorporating those 5 minutes prior to meditation practice or as part of it. So just curious about that, how that may affect a normal sitting practice for a half hour. And my second fun question is, if you know what a kumasu, which is my breathing necklace.
Cool. Yeah, I've
So
heard of these. Yes.
yeah, so it's designed as you blow out. It has the coils on the inside, and it mimics, I think, the best slow breath. I think it might be even 8 seconds out. And you can't force your breath. It slows everything down. So it's called a breathing necklace. It's kind of cool that I keep with me.
Does it act as a kind of a reminder having it there too? Do you actually use it a lot? Do you find yourself pulling it out?
I do use it, but I don't use it a lot. I do a breath practice. So, but absolutely, there are times where I really just need to be very deliberate about my breath and just have it and use this. A few breaths with this really calms me down, and it's kind of sweet, and it's just a nice reminder always. So it's
Awesome. Well, I'll answer
Peter,
your
do
first
you
question.
have?
Oh,
I was just wondering, Peter, do you have a link where we could get one of those? I'm fascinated.
yeah, it's I'll look at why Nick answers maybe the first question
okay.
about the meditation, and
Okay.
absolutely, I buy them on through Amazon.
Of course. Thank you.
But there's a website, a company that makes them specifically. So I'll look for that. Go ahead, Nick.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's that's a cool device. I'm glad you have that. For the first question, in fact, okay. Breathing is like, an ancient practice. Pranayama, it's been around for, I think there's evidence almost like 8,000 years ago that these most ancient it was like 4,000 years ago, people were using breath control for different reasons. But in like traditional pranayama, where we've built all of this modern breathwork movement, they did not even consider it a thought that it could be a standalone practice. It was preparation for meditation. It was to prepare your body and mind so that you could enter a meditative state, so that you could have a spiritual experience, essentially. So really, like how I teach breathing and stuff, it's a very scientific extraction of these tools that they found out, oh, this really works. It's amazing. We don't need all the other stuff. We can strip it out and just do the breathing, and it works really well. But in traditional practices, it was the preparation for meditation. And that's one of the best ways to use it, just because, like, I think Liz, you said you almost fell asleep. Yeah, you had that calm effect. It calms your mind, so that you can sit there and maybe recite loving kindness with a more open heart, or just focus on your breath afterward in a more calm and relaxed way, or whatever techniques you enjoy. So definitely, I would say you can put it anywhere, but if you are going to practice, the 5 minutes prior to your sitting would probably be best. And again, I'm biased, right? I would say just wrap it into your 30 minutes, do 5 minutes of breathing and 25, so that you don't feel any extra stress. Like, oh, now I got to do 35 minutes, right? Because it would probably deepen those 25 minutes enough to justify it, would be Nick's advice, but no science there to back that up.
Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. And did you find the link, Peter?
Yeah, the link is in the
awesome.
chat.
Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. I've seen that brand somewhere.
It's a Japanese breathing stick, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. I think I follow them on Instagram. Naturally. Any other questions?
If I may ask one question about the humming bee breath.
Yes, of course.
I've struggled with the out breath humming at the same time. So when you're humming, are you breathing out through your nose or through pursed lips?
Oh,
I
sorry,
was
through your nose. I'm so
through your
sorry.
nose.
I was
Okay.
not
No.
clear.
I was thinking, because it's hard to breathe, and so it takes practice, like
Right.
anything. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Hey Nick, I had a question just about for the continuous slow breathing.
Okay.
If you're exhaling for longer, was it like around 5 seconds inhaling and 7 seconds exhaling? Would that be about right? Or does it just whatever suits your, like you said, your nervous system?
So the one we did was a roughly, I think, right around there. I think it was 4.5, 6.5. If I remember exact, I forget how I made the tone. I think it was 4.5, 6.5. But yes, 5, 7 is a very common one, and that's a 12-second cycle, which is exactly 5 breaths per minute. So that's a really nice common technique that I've actually used in the past a lot, because there's a free app called the Breathing app. Really simple, really easy to use, and has really beautiful tones to guide the breathing. And they offer the 5-7. They offer 5-5, 4-6, 5-7, or 6-6 as like the free ratios. And so the 5-7 on there is really nice. But yeah, like you can kind of play around with it and see. There's an excellent book. Yeah, I'm going to go on tangents. I'm sorry, but there's a book called Spinal Breathing Pranayama that I really loved, and I don't practice the actual technique, but the author had a really good point of like, maybe don't always use a pacer, and listen to your nervous system. Like, allow the breath to be very slow, but based on how you're actually feeling that day. Because each day if we slept a little worse, or if our blood sugar is a little high, it can change what's comfortable versus what's not. And so listening to your body in that respect, none of you are going to have any problem with that as practitioners of mindfulness and meditation, but it can be a really good practice of that, to say, hey, maybe the 5-7 is too slow today, or maybe it's too fast today, and I need to change it slightly. So it gives you a component there. But yeah, any of them work, but yeah, you can play around and find what's best for you. But if you don't want to think and you just want to go, yeah, 5-7 or 4-6 is usually what I tell people. Just if you don't want to worry about all that, just sit down and do it for 5 minutes and you'll feel good.
Thank you.
Yep. We're right at time. Well, thank you all so much. I do have stuff. Let's see. If y'all want to follow me on Instagram, I have all sorts of stuff. I have a breathing app for diabetes, a couple ebooks, a free newsletter. I've been doing this for many